And we are live. Here we go.
Welcome back to Earth Station Trek, a show where we trek from the early days on NBC to the future on Paramount Plus and everywhere in between. I'm Charles Kelso, and it's my privilege to introduce the Earth Station Trek crew: Keith Johnson,
Nobody but us chickens, Doctor.
Alan Seiler,
A feeling of great joy and gratitude from both of them.
and Veronica Dashel.
Hot bananas.
Nice.
Love it.
Oh, gosh.
Yeah, and you might have gathered we're talking about the series premieres of the Star Trek series tonight.
Woohoo!
Yeah, we just had the series premiere of Strange New Worlds, which was aptly titled Strange New Worlds. And
Very clever.
yeah, which seemed like a good time to break out the old series premieres as well, old and new, and see how it stacks up.
There you go.
Yeah. So how do we want to do it? We want to go through them one by one, or we want to talk about favorites, least favorites?
First,
Favorites.
that's a good idea. First,
Okay.
I just want to say real quickly to anybody watching, there are some people coming in already.
Welcome.
If you have comments or questions, please just drop them into the comments box of wherever you're watching, and we will address your comments and questions as soon as we can in pretty much real time.
Mhm.
We have 2 comments. Matt Sweatman says, "Hey guys,"
Hey, Matt Sweatman.
Sup?
and Dan Leckie says, "Hi guys."
Hi, Dan.
Yay.
Hey,
And a
guys.
random Facebook user says hi.
Hi.
Hey, Facebook user.
I'm not sure who that is. Last time it was an unidentified Facebook user. It was actually Matt Sweatman.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's what I was about to say. I was like,
So
is that
maybe he's
Matt?
cloned. All right, so kick us off, Chuck.
All right. So, I guess we'll start with Strange New World since it's the most recent.
Yeah.
I guess it really depends what we're looking at for a series premiere. You know, setting up the show, introducing the characters, introducing the premise of the series. You know, I guess first, what do you guys look at as what's the bar for success for a series premiere?
Well-
For me, it's something where it's fun and you get the characters, but you don't get overwhelmed by the characters.
Mm. Okay.
Okay.
What's
Is there a
overwhelmed by
case-
the characters?
Is there a case where that happened for you?
I was rewatching the Enterprise episode, and it wasn't that I was overwhelmed with the characters, I guess, but it was kind of like there was all these characters, and none of them seemed important at all whatsoever.
They're the stars of the show.
Yeah,
Hey, Elaine.
Hey, Elaine.
yeah.
Okay.
Okay.
That's interesting.
That is awesome, Veronica, because Enterprise is one of my favorite premieres.
Okay.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I got to go with that as well.
Yeah.
I'm not even the Enterprise fan, and I like the premiere of Enterprise.
Yeah, I think.
I mean, I
think it's-
enjoyed it, but I wasn't
And I never found the characters overwhelming.
exciting.
Yeah. I think for me, for a premiere, because like everybody says, the premieres
Hey,
have
Vandy Beth.
been. Hey, Vandy Beth. The premieres have been a varying success over the years, but I think, like we all say, you want to at least establish the basics of what the characters are. And if you look at
Mhm.
even the original series, even though he was grinning from ear to ear, you got the essence of what Spock was. And I'm talking about the one with Pike. You get the essence of what Spock was. We got the essence of what number 1 could have become, because everybody looked up to her on the bridge, which I thought was really interesting. You had the essence of what will become a Star Trek staple, which is the captain confiding in his doctor. And so I thought that was a successful pilot. And I think in that way, Strange New Worlds also lived up to it, because the character's going to iron out, but you get a good feeling of what they are,
Oh yeah,
I think.
yeah, totally agree.
Keith, when you say the one with Pike, you're going to have to be more specific. From
Thank
now
you.
Oh, I did. You're right. I can't believe I just said that. Then I said Strange New Worlds, right?
Right.
You're right. You're right.
I knew what
I-
you meant.
We know what you mean, but
We're
just for
talking
the
about-
audience, in case someone doesn't.
And guys, for somebody who has been watching Star Trek nonstop for over 50 years, I still every time I do this, have to ask the guys, is it the menagerie or the cage? And I can't believe I still get that confused. Which one is it?
The Cage is the
Cage.
original pilot. The Menagerie is
Okay.
the two-parter.
Okay, I like the
Yeah.
cage. Right. So Pike in the Cage, I love that. I thought that was a great, and I also think it's so funny because the Cage is famously the one that NBC said was too cerebral, and then they came back with No Man Has Gone Before. I think both pilots are excellent, and they both excel at what they do. And
Yeah,
I think,
agree.
Yeah, and I think the Cage, because it was cerebral, it introduced sci-fi concepts that were incredibly rare in television at that time, and is still kind of the formula of what Star Trek has become. Not the action, the adventure, the space stuff, but the contemplation of your place in the universe, the whole point behind a race destroying themselves with telepathy, a captain who was a little weary of himself. That was incredibly uncommon for anything on television back then. I love that pilot.
Yeah, I agree. I think it's hugely successful. And so when we're talking about series pilots, since nothing really happened after the Cage because it was like CBS said poo poo on that, I call it the franchise pilot.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So, and I think it's really good. I think it introduces a lot of concepts that, okay, you can say that it's a sort of slow paced thing, but it's so thoughtful.
Yeah.
It's got so much intelligence behind it. I think it's a great episode. There is a little drawback to it. There is the women.
Yes.
And
I think that's the best part.
and there's the famous Pike thing about I just can't get used to having women on the bridge.
Yeah.
Which is funny now that we've got Strange New Worlds. He clearly got over that. So
yeah.
But yeah, other than those two things, I think it's a phenomenal piece of television. I love it.
Absolutely.
Yeah. It's funny with the original series. I mean, really, we have 3 contenders for series premiere because you have 2 pilots and then the first broadcast episode,
exactly,
which is the Man Trap.
That's a good point.
And we didn't add it. We didn't count the first production episode, the Corbomite Maneuver. So
that's true. But you can only go
right.
One show can only have so many pilots.
But of the 3, I think the one that actually opened the series on NBC was the weakest of the 3. I think the 2 pilots are better episodes than the Man Trap is.
Totally
Absolutely.
agree. Yeah. But I mean, I think the Man Trap sets up a really good sort of action adventure kind of Western story with a cool monster.
Yeah.
I mean, I think it does what CBS wanted it to do.
Yeah.
But I think like when you compare the 3, it is definitely the weakest of the 3. But I still love it.
Yeah, I love the Man Trap too. And Dan Leckie commented that the Cage used to be called the Menagerie, which is right. But for the purposes of the conversation, I think it's going to be confusing to try to use the original title.
Exactly.
So for the purposes of this conversation, the Cage is the original pilot, and the Menagerie will be the 2-parter from TOS.
Exactly.
Yeah. So Matt Sweatman made a comment of some of the best Trek series have some of the worst premiere episodes, and I never thought about that way. I don't know if I'd agree with that.
Like what, Matt? Although I agree with you on one, but what do you say, Matt? Which one?
Well, since he can't respond in real time, what is the one that you're thinking of?
I don't like the TNG pilot.
I knew you're going to say that one.
Yeah, it's okay, and it's not bad. There's not a bad pilot in the bunch, but it's just okay. And Alan, you started out with the Great Joy and whatever. I mean, that doesn't age very well. They were still getting their characters lined up. Picard is a real ass in that episode when he first meets Riker, which is kind of weird. And that's again not a criticism. They just hadn't worked it out. They were doing major new things.
Yeah.
I mean, and I know that. I'm sorry.
No,
I
you
say DC Fontana had written sort of the Farpoint part of the story, and then Gene Roddenberry came back and added the Q stuff. I know she was never really happy with that, but honestly, the Q stuff is the stuff that holds up to me out of that episode.
Yeah.
Yes.
The Farpoint adventure isn't my favorite DC Fontana script.
Well, I agree because the Farpoint side feels like, honestly, the Roddenberry ideal where they really couldn't think of anything kind of new because it's kind of cliched. Now, is it true that the Q stuff was written because they needed filler?
I don't know. I don't know if that's the reason. I do know they wanted it to be longer for the pilot, but I don't think Gene Roddenberry just like, I'll just BS some Q stuff. I mean that's all very, very Roddenberry, very humanity on trial stuff. The kind of stuff he loves.
Exactly.
Yeah.
I think he may have extended a little longer. I think some of the Q stuff was extended, and I even heard somewhere that the ship separation scene was kind of added, although they had always wanted to do it, but it was like, well, let's add this in here too. It'll add a little bit more to it, to the time.
Yeah.
At the time, I loved it, but that's because it was the first new Star Trek in however long.
Right.
And you know, so with nothing to compare it to, I must have watched it over and over and over, and like literally had lines of dialogue throughout the whole thing just memorized because it was like the newest thing to watch, you know.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
and then as further episodes came out, I loved it because it
Mm.
just felt like Star Trek to me. Now the problem with Farpoint is that TNG evolved so far beyond that point,
Mhm.
beyond that
Yeah.
far point.
Yes.
That, you know, I mean, it just reached heights that you would never have guessed watching that first episode.
Right. I agree
So
with
it
that.
just doesn't stand up to what TNG became, you know.
No, yeah, and everything's kind of stilted and everything's kind of
is.
labored. I mean, they spend a lot
Yeah.
of time like separating the ship and those big moments like that. But I mean,
Right.
they're not in any hurry, you know.
Well, that's
like,
true. That's true.
Yeah.
And you know, that was a thing that was mentioned in the original series, but they never had the means to show it. So of
Mhm.
course they're going to spend time. You know, we Trekkers, we love our ship porn, and so ship porn. So you know, they're going to give us a lengthy separation scene, which I was like eating up at the time.
Oh yeah.
That's
Oh, yeah.
actually true because in the original series, was it the Apple?
Yeah.
Where
Mhm.
Kirk told Scotty to break out of there with the main section if he had
Yep.
to.
Yep.
And what are they talking about? And then
Right.
years later, you finally get to see them break out of there with the main section.
And I think
Which
it's way
is
cool. I think the visual effects on it hold up great.
Oh yeah.
But yeah, I mean,
But-
the pacing is
Yeah.
a little tough, and I think the characters are pretty stiff in Farpoint.
Absolutely.
But it's funny too that there's so many little things that they like linger on to point out to you that
Mhm.
you never ever see again, like the wall panels, like pointing you which direction to go to get to somebody you're looking for. That's hilarious.
Yeah. Yeah.
Oh
Wow.
gosh.
That reminds me of Battle School.
From Ender's Game.
Yes.
Okay.
Oh.
Oh
Yeah.
yeah, love that movie.
Yeah.
Actually, I love
No.
that book. Actually,
Yes.
no.
All right. So
Not movie, book.
Oh,
Uh,
I enjoyed the movie.
this is Star Trek.
Anyway.
Go ahead, Alan.
To jump back a series, here's a comment from Dan
Mhm.
who says his weakest is Beyond the Farthest Star. And as we've talked about on this show before, I
Interesting.
love that episode.
Interesting.
I mean, this might not be the strongest story, but I think it does so much to establish the identity of TAS and to sort of like separate it from, like, here is the Star Trek you're familiar with, but here it is in a completely new and different way.
Mhm.
You know what? I got to say this again. I think it's awesome that the opinion is so different. I love Beyond the Farthest Star.
Yeah, I think it's amazing.
I
Oh,
actually
wait.
watch it a couple of times a month.
I'm forgetting to do my things. Hold on.
What's that?
Put my screens up.
Oh, yeah.
As they say on the original series.
Raise the screens.
Raise the screens. Where the hell is my screen? No, I can't find the one I'm looking for.
Yeah.
That's
Beyond,
interesting. Mhm.
I'd say
There we
Beyond the
go.
Farthest Star, I could see it being weak compared to the other premieres. I mean, you got 90-minute premieres, and Beyond the
Right.
Farthest Star,
Oh,
like
sure.
Dan said, is a 20-minute premiere. I have a
Sure.
hard time separating because this one in Yesteryear I first experienced in the Alan Dean Foster novelization before I even knew there was a cartoon.
Wow.
So I'm sure that having already been familiar with Alan Dean Foster's version of the story colored my perceptions of it. But
Yeah.
I love just the weird alien environments. I mean, Beyond the Farthest Star just blows it out of the water as far as breaking out of that, live action television constraints.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Like
Yeah.
we'll
Studio
have the
bound.
biggest, weirdest starship and weird alien.
I mean,
I love it.
just look at the image on the screen and look at
Mhm.
the scale. The
Yeah.
tiny characters on this massive alien environment that you could never have gotten anywhere else in television.
Right.
I
And
just-
I'm sorry, Alan.
artistically speaking, I think it's a phenomenal episode.
Absolutely. And it has great Star Trek concepts, as you were saying,
Oh,
also,
yeah.
Charles, because Scott even talked about that the material of that ship was more like a filament that had been spun out than any kind of metal. And in that way,
Yeah.
it kind of reminded me of, it's a living starship. There's also the introduction of the force field belts, which was kind of interesting.
Oh yeah, right.
Yeah.
And I
Yeah, there's
I
all
really
kinds of
love
crazy
that.
stuff in that.
Yeah, but
Yeah.
the animated series though,
Hi,
even
Parker.
we've talked about this before. Hey Parker, I
Hey,
mean,
Parker.
even when the story is weak or the performances are weak, they excelled at those alien environments and alien species.
Yes.
That's something that I think they always
Yes.
did a great job with in the animated series.
Agreed.
Yes. Also, I
Yeah.
love the music of the animated series too.
Even though it's the same music every episode, I love it so
Absolutely.
much.
Yep.
Yes. That's it. Yeah. And I mean,
Hey, do the run.
oh yeah, it's and they do their elbows like this every time they run. It's almost like Popeye. This is transgressive to say, but I like Beyond Dan. I like the Beyond the Farthest Star more than I like the episode where Spock goes back in time to meet his younger self. And I know that may be transgressive to say, but I really love that episode. As you were saying, Alan, when you put that up, every time I see that ship, I'll just go, "Oh wow!"
I know
thing
exactly.
looks so
So
cool.
Matt Sweatman does not have very good memories of the TAS episodes. And Matt Sweatman, I would encourage you to go back and rewatch that series because I think it's
Absolutely.
amazing.
Yeah.
God,
I love the
it.
animated series.
I love
Yeah.
it so much.
Mm-hmm.
There's some really, really clever storytelling in that series.
Yeah, there really is.
Absolutely.
Yeah, and it did a lot to grow the Star Trek universe after the original series.
Yeah.
Right,
Without a
and
doubt.
And at that time, as you were saying, guys, it was also the only place where they could show certain aliens that we just weren't going to be able to get into that series at that time.
Mm-hmm.
You know, the Mares and Eric's,
Eric's,
and all the different aliens. Like, can you imagine them in the early 1970s trying to? I forget the name of the episode. The creatures that were so incredibly beyond ours that even telepathically communicating with us almost destroyed their minds. The one where they put them in the zoo. Imagine them trying to do that in live action at that time. Giant.
Yeah, the Eye of the Beholder. Yeah, you wouldn't be able to pull that off. Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah. So it's a great one. Yeah, definitely. Matt, definitely check out the animated series. Just don't look for great animation. There's weird things because there were some colorblind people. The most fearsome race probably introduced in that entire series, the Kazenti, wear pink outfits that just don't look quite right for fearsome warriors.
I'm just getting a couple of the previous screens up because I missed them in our discussion, so I'm gonna give them some love.
And then real quick, just to defend the animation of the animated series, that was at a time when a lot of animation studios were shipping it out overseas to save money, and Filmation managed to keep it here in the US and keep it on budget and to be competitive. And they did. They kept a lot of animators in work by doing that.
Right.
So they did have to cut corners, but there's a reason for it.
Absolutely.
So Dan Leckie loves Yesteryear. Everybody loves Yesteryear.
Yeah, everybody loves Yesteryear.
Vandy Best says the Emissary is the best pilot. Caretaker is bad.
I agree about Emissary. Emissary is my favorite of the bunch.
Yes.
Yeah.
And I know Matt said a little while ago that he didn't.
Well, I
care
was
for
just about
Emissary.
to. Right. I was just about to find that and put it up because I was actually gonna save that for later.
Oh.
Because it's
interesting.
It's remarkable how close it falls in line with the poll that we just did. Yeah.
Okay.
So we'll talk about that later in the episode. So we're going to be revealing the results of our fan poll
of our public
later
poll.
In this episode. Our public poll.
Don't go peek.
Spoilers.
I love Emissary. I think Emissary is fantastic.
Oh man.
It sets up sort of the world of DS9. It doesn't go as far as DS9 went later, but in particular with the character of Cisco, I just love following him, and I love the Prophets. I think that's just a really fascinating sci-fi idea. And there's a scene that always gets me when he's trying to communicate the idea of temporal time to the Prophets.
Yeah.
And he's trying to explain to them that Jennifer's death happened in the past.
Yeah.
And they're like, why do you exist here?
Right.
And it's part of, it's what sci-fi does so great is just like a weird sci-fi idea, but also turning it back onto the human experience that it's him that can't get past it. It's not them. He's the one that can't get past that and can't let go of it, you know?
Yeah. I was also fascinated. I remember clearly when DS9 premiered the attacks on a ship on a show that goes nowhere. You know, the whole thing. And there was a lot of that, probably more than people nowadays would realize. There was a lot of this. It can't possibly be good because they never go anywhere. And that's not the definition of Star Trek.
Exactly. And it took a lot of time for a lot of people to get over that. And some of them didn't until later on, until like after, like in repeats.
Right.
But but I loved it. I tell you
Me
what,
too.
I thought from that first episode, I thought that it was so different and so
Mhm.
unique, and painted such a really rich and realistic tone.
Yes.
I loved it. I loved all of the characters. I was like, I have no idea where this show is going to go, and I love that. I love
Yeah.
that I wasn't able to pin down. Now, the funny thing is, when we get up to Discovery, I had a hard time finding the Star Trek in Discovery when I first
Yeah.
saw
Mhm.
it.
Yeah.
Even though I liked the episode DS9, I had a hard time finding the connection between it and what we all had seen so far as Star Trek. But
Mm.
I thought it was exciting. I was like, I have no idea where we are or what's going on, and I love it.
Yeah, one of the things for me with DS9 is since I was and remain a huge fan of the series Spencer for Hire, and as
We know
everybody knows,
you've mentioned that a time
yeah,
or two.
love it. Avery Brooks is Hawk, even though he
Heck
didn't
yeah,
look
man.
like Hawk.
Yeah.
The scene when he meets Picard, and there's a couple of things there. The true Avery Brooks character didn't come out, as cliched as it is to say, until he really lost the hair and got the beard. That's
Okay,
true. Because
hold on. Okay, first I
Yeah.
wanted to put up the slide of the scene you're talking about.
right,
And
that's him.
now I want to get Matt's comment. Damn it, come on. Cisco with 3 pips and hair, pass. Cisco with 4 pips and bald, bring it on.
You got it, brother.
That's it, baby.
Yep.
You got it.
Yep.
But honestly, his character didn't really relax into Cisco until he got his look. But what I did like in this scene is you saw somebody who took it to Picard in a really strange ways, because remember he talked about
Mhm.
seeing him again, and then Picard says, "Have we met?" And
Yeah.
there's a fierceness in Avery
Oh.
Brooks' response that you don't get to hear much of in the first two. And then when he said, "We met in battle at
Yeah.
Wolf
Mhm.
359,"
Yeah.
and Picard is just, oh my God, he's taken aback, he's embarrassed, he's horrified, and that was an awesome scene. And I think that little bit of fierceness in Cisco
Yeah.
is the core of Cisco.
So
Even though that was-
yeah, go ahead.
Mhm.
It's a
Oh, 'cause
ballsy
he-
choice too, because I mean it's a
Yeah.
spinoff of Next Gen. The only reason the show exists is because Next Gen is successful. Everyone loves Picard, and to have
Right.
the
Right.
hero of the new show come on and be like, "Picard, you suck," in the first episode.
Right.
But also in the, I don't remember the name of the episode. It's in season 6, and Cisco and whoever else has to go like undercover as Klingons onto a
Mhm.
Klingon ship. So they're all like dolled up, you
Yep.
know. And the whole time, the whole series, I was thinking Brooks would make a phenomenal Klingon. And
Absolutely.
then I got to see him do it, and it was amazing.
yes,
Yes.
yes.
You know who would not make a phenomenal Klingon is O'Brien.
True.
He made a terrible Klingon.
That is true.
Yes.
Right.
Baby.
Oh,
Right. I was
All right.
also, I'm sorry, one last
No,
thing. Because of Ensign Rowe and a couple of episodes, I absolutely was looking forward to the Bajoran people,
mm.
and they did not disappoint. They built such a mythos and they fleshed out the Bajoran race in so many ways, not just for the religious aspect, but of course they were the analog of Jews who dealt with the Holocaust. And what they end up doing with the Cardassians. I mean, I've rarely seen species and races that have introduced in other places fleshed out so incredibly well. And shout out to Veronica. I never thought the Ferengi could hold in a 7-year series and be interesting.
I'm going to get a comment that is kind of like jumping forward a bit. I want to put it up so I don't lose it later on, but we'll get to it in a minute. And that is Dan's controversial comment that the Lower Decks pilot is even worse than TAS.
Ooh.
Oh,
Okay.
Them some fighting words.
We'll get there.
Yeah, we'll get there.
Yeah.
And just so we know, all opinions are respected and received.
IDIC.
Exactly. My buddy Parker adored the Bajorans. Me
Hey.
too.
Yeah.
I
Me
didn't
too.
like them as
Here.
much when I was 12, 13. I thought the Bajoran episodes
Yeah.
were kind of boring. But going back
Mhm.
now, I love those episodes. Like the one where the guy won't leave the moon and Kira goes back. I love that kind of stuff now.
Yeah. Brian Keith. Yeah, that was a good one.
Yeah.
Oh, right.
Yeah, there was a lot of that earlier on I thought was good because it also reminds me in some ways of the rebuilding of South Africa after apartheid ended.
Okay.
Because to what you're saying, Charles, there was a lot of early stuff where basically like there was corrupt people in the Bajoran provisional government.
Oh, yeah.
There were deals being cut, and Kira having been, well, let's be honest, she was a terrorist and a freedom fighter.
Mhm.
She
Yeah.
still had that kind of we should all be together. And then you start getting people doing back deals and people trying to run for political office and people who are self-serving, not just freedom fighters. And I love the realism of that.
Yeah.
That they
Yeah.
did.
So
All right.
Voyager.
I was just gonna find my
Alas, Voyager.
boom. I couldn't
Wow.
find one good
Oh,
image,
that's good.
so I found.
Oh
the
my God, it's a
collage
Kazon.
that-
But he put a
Yeah.
Kazon in.
So there's definitely a mixed bag when you're talking
Yeah.
about the.
Yeah.
First of all, okay, so this brings up the point of the hair test.
Yes.
If on TNG Riker doesn't have a beard, skip it. If Cisco has hair and doesn't have a beard, skip it. If Janeway has her hair in a bun, skip it. So there you go.
The bun of
the hair
steel, they
test.
called it.
Right,
Yeah.
exactly.
We're
Yeah,
Go
go
ahead.
ahead.
we were watching Caretaker last night, and something that I always wondered. I wonder if anybody has the answer to this. Was the opening to Caretaker deliberately an homage to Star Wars? Because it goes straight from the crawl to the Maquis
Oh.
ship being chased by the Cardassian ships, and it's pretty Star Warsy at the beginning.
Yeah.
You get, like the
It really
rebels, and they're
is.
being chased by an evil empire, essentially.
Mhm.
I always
Yeah.
wondered that if they're deliberately riffing on Star Wars with that opening.
Could be.
Yeah, I think that's a good point. It could have been. So what did everybody
Oh,
think
holy
about that?
I was about to cuss. Sorry. Holy cow.
Oh,
That collage was Dan's.
hey, good job, Dan.
Well, hey, thank you
Awesome.
so much, and don't sue us for using your image and violating your intellectual property. We're doing it because it was great and because it really paints a picture of the Voyager premiere.
Yes.
So,
Yeah.
thank you,
Awesome.
Dan.
So what did everybody think about the Voyager pilot? Ultimately?
I like
It's
probably-
okay.
Yeah, like the first
Yeah.
half, I'm really into. I like a lot of the
Yeah.
ideas. I like the Caretaker kind of stuff.
Mhm.
It
Mhm.
falls apart when you get to Kazon planet or
Yeah.
Ocampa or
Yeah.
whatever that planet was.
Right.
For one, it doesn't make any sense that they don't have any water there. Like, you guys have spaceships. Go grab a frozen
Yes.
asteroid and bring it back, and you got plenty
Right.
of water. Like water is abundant. But
Yeah.
also the Kazon are just like cheap
Dumb.
Klingons. Like they're just
Dumb.
knockoff Klingons.
Yeah.
Yeah. So
They-
yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's okay. It's not. I just find it a real mixed bag.
Me
Like
too.
the big concept stuff. I don't find as engaging as what we
Right.
see in DS9 or even in the Cage or anything like that. I just find it to be like, I mean, they're establishing the fact that the ship has been sent 70 light years across the galaxy and blah
Mhm.
blah blah. But as far as like whatever the Caretaker is and who it is and what it's doing and blah blah, I just don't care.
Hmm.
Just
And
don't care.
I always, I hate to say, I always have one. I have one word for the pilot that I always think of when I watch the pilot, and that word is timer. Because the whole point of this is Janeway had to destroy the array
Oh,
so
yeah.
that the Kazons didn't use it. And I just I hate to be that person, but I keep thinking you could have fired a couple of quantum torpedoes and set them to blow up in like 60 seconds. Because some people say, well, she couldn't have done that because they would have gotten a hold of it. No, she could have fired half a dozen quantum torpedoes, set a 6-second delay, gotten through there, and of course he wouldn't have had a series. And so that's
Right.
always been a flaw in the show for me. It's always been a problem.
Or if you're that worried about it, stay behind in a shuttle with the torpedoes, and your crew can get
Yeah.
to safety and
Right.
make sure the thing blows.
Right.
Hmm.
Yeah. And yeah, Caretaker and Emissary both started. Dan's pointing out Caretaker and Emissary both started with opening crawl and then space battle. But I don't know, in DS9 it didn't make me think of Star Wars because it's going straight to Wolf 359, which isn't
Yeah.
to me
which
that's
is-
Star Warsy. But
Yeah.
just the Cardassian ship chasing the Maquis fighter, I don't know, it just makes me think of Star Wars.
Mm-hmm.
Charles, you said that the first half was pretty good, and Alan, you said that all the stuff with the Kazon and so forth wasn't that good. And Veronica,
Kazon
you
are
said,
dumb.
yeah, and Veronica, you said, man, here's the thing I always found. This is actually paradoxical. up until that time, Voyager in some ways had the most assured pilot in terms of not that it was great, but you could tell the machine was working. Everything clicked, like the
Yeah.
music, and it was an incredibly sure. Even though the characters, the actors, it felt really professionally, slickly done, I guess. But you know
I
that
can see
30
that.
minutes. Yeah, but you remember there was a lady. What's her name in real life? Her last name is Coppola, but she's that actress. She's been in everything. She was the navigator. She
Oh.
died at the beginning.
Stoddy?
Yeah, and then there was the doctor. Was it the doctor
Yep.
who hated Paris, and then he
Yep.
died?
Yep.
And there was, for lack of a better term, there was an edge and a darkness to that pilot.
Mm.
And it never fulfilled that promise later on, because they were chasing
Yeah.
the Maquis and there was all this stuff, and then people died, and they never got back to that again. Because within
No.
about a month, they were pretty cool with the Maquis, and then every now and then they'd have an episode where Chakotay would go knock a Maquis on his butt and say, "Yeah, remember how we used to do it in the Maquis?" But
Yeah.
it never really fleshed out after that, and it became a competent show, but not the show that I thought I saw at the beginning.
Yeah.
Yeah.
The concept of having Maquis crew members
Yeah.
was wasted.
Mhm.
Yes.
Oh yeah.
Because
Yeah.
after the first episode, you really didn't hear anything about it again until that one episode a couple of seasons down the road where, they have, I don't know, Tuvok is going to put him in there, like, I don't know, it was stupid.
He was training him,
Just
making
a
him.
waste.
Yeah.
It was just
Yeah.
a wasted concept. Like, why even bother to introduce it? It was
Well,
a fine concept, but
they-
do something with it.
They shouldn't
Yeah.
have been in Starfleet uniforms at the end of the pilot.
No,
They
Right.
should have
True.
remained in Maquis outfits to separate them. 'Cause,
Right.
I mean,
Yeah, agreed.
I understand why Janeway would bring them into the crew, but just from a storytelling point of view,
Yeah.
I mean, keeping them looking and feeling separate, I think would have been a better choice. And you want to hear something really stupid that disappointed me when Caretaker premiered when I was 14, because I'd been following all the articles and stuff I could find. And when
Yeah.
Harry Kim came on and he didn't have gills, and I was really disappointed that Harry Kim didn't have gills, because I had read an article that called him a green around the gills ensign. And I thought that he was going to have gills.
I love it.
Oh my God, that is amazing.
Yeah, but that's not Caretaker's fault.
You
No,
could have
it's not.
you could have expected that horrible fish creature from that horrible episode, Luoxana Troy. You remember that one?
Right. Yeah, it's Star Trek. I mean, he's
I'm
got
sorry.
gills. That's not unusual.
Don't be talking bad about Mick Fleetwood.
Well, that's
Back
true.
it up, buddy. Jumping slightly ahead, I have a
Yeah.
comment here about the next show in line,
Okay.
Uh-huh.
and that is Eric Watts saying Broken Bow gave us rich Klingons on Earth, and the series went straight to hell from there.
Oh boy, here we go.
There was a big online debate about whether Klingons would have ridges or not when
Yeah.
Enterprise came out, and I was on the
Yeah.
side of smooth-headed Klingons, and so yeah,
Shocking.
my camp lost.
Wow.
But they they went the full measure with it and gave you a reason why they had ridges in
Eventually.
season 4. And
Yeah.
eventually, yes, they
Mhm.
did.
Just
So
wait
they
through
at least
60
addressed it.
episodes.
Eventually.
yeah.
Yeah.
So Enterprise, yay or nay? That pilot.
Meh.
Yeah.
I mean, I like the Enterprise
I love
pilot.
it.
Me too.
It suffers from some of the things that the rest of the series suffers from, where it's
Mhm.
sort of the technology works very much like the TNG universe does narratively, and
Yeah.
things like anything sexual in the show feels like it was written by a 13-year-old boy.
Yes.
Oh boy, yeah.
I mean, it's
Decontamination rubdowns. Yeah.
Yeah,
I was gonna-
and even like you're on an alien planet for the first time, and you see like ladies eating butterflies, and like, come on, Malcolm, like close your jaw and
I know.
get to the
Right.
mission.
I
You know
know.
what I mean?
I mean, I
Right.
kind of understand it because it's the very first step out into the big world, and you're going to be sort of like surprised and agog at some of the things that you see.
Yeah.
And I'm going to tell you, I was looking for a good, like single frame to kind of like get some of the characters in. I almost just put in a decontamination scene because that is the thing that people always think
Yeah.
of when they think
Yeah.
of the Enterprise pilot.
That's
yeah.
It
Overall, I
was
love
so
it.
gratuitous and so dumb and so bad.
Yeah.
I didn't remember
Enterprise-
anything else from the episode.
Wow. Enterprise is a show that when it worked phenomenally, but you're right, when it was bad, it was really bad. Yeah, when it failed and things
Mhm.
like that. There was so much. I'm sure everybody listening, I know you guys all know, I will give them credit. I don't think it would have lasted like this, but I think everybody knows that B&B, Berman and Braga, wanted the entire first season to be on Earth.
Yeah,
They wanted the
wanted
entire.
they wanted
Yeah.
to tell the story of Earth getting ready to leave Earth
Yeah.
and walking out into the great unknown for the first time, and they
Right.
wanted a big buildup for that.
Yeah.
And the network was like, we ain't got time for that. We got to get a starship into space. Do it
Yeah.
in the
I
first
don't-
episode.
I don't think realistically, I would have watched it and loved it, but I don't think realistically, given the times, an entire season on Earth would have worked. But I really think they could have done probably 3 episodes on Earth before they launched. I wish they had. But again, we're talking about the network and the network medley,
Yeah.
because to what you're saying, Alan, the network said no to that. And let's be honest, it was the network that forced the temporal Cold War on that series,
Yep.
which I
Well-
really dislike.
I don't think it was necessarily that they forced the temporal Cold War. That was a storyline that Braga had in his back pocket that he was developing for something else. And when the network was like, okay, you're doing the beginning of the Federation, we need another element. You need to add something to this. That was what he had in his back pocket to put in.
Yeah, but he didn't want it to be. You're right. He didn't want it to be as expansive, and they wanted
Yeah.
it to be really expansive. And it really, to me, the temporal Cold War. I just don't like it. But there was so much about Enterprise I did like.
Mhm.
And this is another, man. You talk to 10 people, you're going to get half that love it and half that hate it. I love the Vulcans in Enterprise.
I do
love
too.
the fact that they were leaving logic. I love all that stuff, and I love Archer's attitude toward the Vulcans. And I love the fact that
That was
the-
pretty
you know,
hilarious.
it was great, and it was amazing that the Vulcans for almost a century had kind of held Earth back, and that actually makes sense. You know that it wasn't, it wasn't all hunky dory. That the Vulcans were still saying you're not quite ready to go out there.
Yeah.
I love Admiral Forrest. I love that you still had this early thing of Starfleet, and one of the most wasted characters whose introduction I loved at first was Malcolm, not Malcolm.
Not
Gosh,
Malcolm.
the pilot,
Malcolm.
Travis Mayweather.
Oh, Travis.
And they-
Yeah.
Yeah,
Poor
they
guy.
called him a space boomer, and he had been in
Yeah.
space longer and deeper in space than anybody. And he pretty much he really became a nothing character really throughout the series.
Mm.
Apologies
yeah.
to the
So-
actor.
Yeah, so in the third season, Twilight, the episode where it jumps to the future after the Zindi have blown
He
up.
just dies
Earth.
and no one cares.
Right. He gets blown up, and they like basically just shove him aside, and nobody mentions him or thinks about him for the rest of the episode,
That's
including
true.
the audience,
Right.
That's true.
because
Yeah.
he was that much of a nothing character, and it's not Anthony's fault. He was
Not
great.
at all.
There
Yeah.
was just nothing given to him, and Hoshi was almost as bad. She
Yes.
did get a few episodes here and there that really let her shine, and she always gave really good performances in those.
Yeah.
That they just never gave anything to Anthony, and that's terrible.
If you watch
Yeah.
the show,
Like,
the
why waste the
number-
payroll? You know?
Exactly. If you watch the show, the number of times, seriously, following what you're saying, Alan, the number of times where Mayweather is literally hurt and just lying in the hospital, in the sick bay, or captured by that spider creature thing. There's a whole bunch of shows where he's pretty much just incapacitated, and you're right. And then they just throw him on the sidelines. And I
Right.
thought that was such a waste of a character. And then they wrote themselves to a corner, because then they said that thing, well, since he was a space boomer and the ships he was on could only do something like warp 2.8, maybe, that after a little bit of time, he couldn't even guide them anymore. So it wasn't like, he
Yeah.
was the only one who'd been out anywhere. And
Yeah.
after that, they just didn't know what to do with him, which is unfortunate.
I mean, it's not like there's so many characters that you can't have time to
Right.
round out the 8 that you have. So
Yeah.
Dan says the decon chamber demonstrates that they don't yet have fully operational biofilters in the transporter. That is true. And the decon chamber is not the issue. It's that they have to get naked. I'm saying your word, Keith. They have to get naked, and they have to slather gel all over each other's
Yeah.
naked bodies. Oh,
Yeah.
Yeah.
So
And
tacky.
to
So
okay, to be delicate here, if you're gonna do that, there's all kinds of body parts that you need to be getting up into to do that right.
Yep.
So it really should have been pornographic, to be honest about it. Yeah, because in real life, you would have a spray or you would have a submersion pool, one or the other. In the
Yeah.
story, they would, kind of like when in Star Wars and Luke Skywalker gets injured, and remember that after the thing hits him.
Like the back
He's in-
tank.
Yeah, exactly. You'd have something like that. So it was so heavy-handedly sexual. It was just weird. You're right.
It
It's
was
like, what happened?
uncomfortably sexual.
Yes. Yes, it was. But I love Enterprise. I love the Vulcans. I love seeing the early Federation. I am maybe in the minority of this opinion. I will agree that, like everybody says, that Manny Koto's fourth season is the most slickly produced, but it is not my favorite because it has a lot more fan callback. And I loved when the Enterprise crew met creatures we'd never heard of before. It's great to see the Orions. It's great to see the Klingons. Well, it's not great to see the Ferengi in that episode.
Yeah.
I don't even like it when they introduce the Organians, even though they don't know that. I like it when they discover completely new races. Like I love the Xindi because it was a new race.
Yeah.
So I loved it. I hated the Temporal Cold War, but I actually loved the characters. And a lot of people say Scott Bakula didn't do a good job as Captain Archer, but I liked him as Captain Archer.
I did too.
Yeah.
I just want to point out that we've gotten completely off topic of the pilot.
Thank you. I was just going to say, what happens in season 4 has no relevance at all to our discussion.
Well, it's what the pilot set up and then what it became.
I know.
Yeah, it's like expectations.
I'm just giving you a hard time.
We've done it with every single series
Yeah,
so far.
But speaking of,
I just
the
wanted to point it
aliens, though, I think the Suliban had the similar problem to the Kazons. I think the Suliban,
Yeah.
they're set up to be the big bads, but I don't think they're particularly effective. I don't think the makeup's
They're
very
not.
good. I think that the fact that they can do weird CGI things with their bodies, is like contortionist kind of stuff, is kind of neat.
Right.
But
Yeah.
I don't think they work very well as bad guys. You know.
Agreed.
I mean, yeah, and there were episodes that kind of like cast that into doubt anyway, because there were some where it's like you find out that they aren't the protagonist behind whatever the big bad thing is that week, when they assume it is, and it turns out that it isn't. And then they're the ones who are painting what's his name, Daniels, and the temporal agents or whatever as the bad guys, and the Suliban are trying to protect Enterprise from the bad guys, and it just gets muddied.
Yeah.
Not that you have to have like clear delineation between good and bad, gray. You don't have to have that, but they really did. They were ill-defined, I think.
Yeah, I think so too.
Everything was shrouded in mystery. All right, so where are we going now? Is it time for disco?
Yeah. The Vulcan Hello.
Woohoo!
I like this one.
Yeah. I had fun with it.
Yeah. To me, I mean, it's very much a departure from what Star Trek had been visually, but I love that they gave Starfleet sort of a Sid Mead design to the ships, and then went the opposite way with the Klingons and gave them sort of a Geiger look, all the Klingon technology and the Klingons themselves had very like a H.R. Geiger look, and then the very Sid Mead with the Starfleet ships. And I thought that worked really well, but I love too that it had sort of a nautical feel again. And then it had sort of I think with the silver on the boots and the ray guns, it felt very Flash Gordon-y. Just that combination of elements I thought really worked well for it.
Yeah, that's a good point. And I thought the opening scenes on the desert planet were so gorgeous.
Oh,
and really, really set a great tone for that opening.
Yeah.
Loved it. I had a hard time getting into to kind of like figuring out who the characters were. Not that the actors were bad or anything. I just was like, I'm not sure what is going on here. It was a totally different experience than I had with DS9, as we mentioned earlier, where I was like, this is completely different and I love it. This one was like, and I think maybe it's because of the time it's set. This is set at a time when we should understand what Star Trek is. And I had a hard time kind of like making it connect. They're using the same phraseology, but I'm not like getting the same like definitions from it in a sense. Now, having said that, I liked all the actors, and I really loved Michelle Yeoh.
Yes.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah, I like Saru a lot from the beginning. I like Michael Burnham a lot.
A lot, yeah.
I like the whole mutiny thing. I thought, and I loved her reasoning for it as well. I thought it just worked really well for me. I don't remember now. I mean, are we counting part 1 and part 2, or just part 1?
Oh yeah, no, the story, not the
Sarek Katra across the galaxy thing. I did not care for.
Yeah, that was a little goofy.
Yeah. But no, I liked the premiere. I had some issues going on with Discovery as season 1 and 2 unfolded, but from the premiere, I mean, I was super stoked, and I love that it opened with Starfleet officers just sort of do-gooding around the galaxy. We'll save this planet, and then go fix this relay, and that they're
That's
just
true.
doing good things around the galaxy.
Yeah, that's true. So first series with the main character not being the commander. That's true.
That's very true.
Constant uniform changes in Disco is weird.
Yeah.
Dan says Discovery is probably his favorite pilot. Very awesome. And my buddy Anthony. Hi, Anthony.
Hey, Anthony.
It's an interesting call for the Vulcan Hello to not introduce the majority of the main cast. I agreed. It doesn't even start on the title ship until you get to the third episode. And to kill off Georgiou, who had been hyped up as a major character, but that's something for later into the season.
Right. Yeah.
And then he says, hi. All right. Yeah, I love it. I think it's a fantastic pilot. It was different enough, and I think the emphasis on the Klingons as like how much of the screen time was spent with them on the screen telling their story from their perspective with their language, and it being subtitled into our language, I think it was a very cool move, but I also think that it was kind of off-putting for a lot of the audience. Like there wasn't enough for the audience to really sort of grab hold of, if that makes sense.
I really liked the Klingons talking in their own language, and then the translation. I did not care for the makeup. It was too much. That was way too much.
I didn't mind it.
Yeah, I think it's difficult for the actors because they're having to perform in an alien language with the fake teeth and the rubber head and the contacts. But I mean, as far as just having Klingon, I'll watch scene after scene of just them speaking Klingon. And frankly, Discovery, they speak Klingon better than any other Star Trek show ever had.
Yep.
I mean, they're actually pronouncing people were getting mad because they're saying Kalish and things like that because they're pronouncing it in the Klingon language.
Yeah.
And I didn't want Jason Isaacs to leave either. There was a psychic leak, but I mean, I'm talking about like speaking to him like back and forth across the galaxy. I don't remember the Trip and T'Pol thing. I do remember the immunity syndrome, but I'm talking about just like, I mean, it's almost like a hollow communication where they're just like speaking to one another through the Katra link. That I didn't really care for. I mean, I get that Vulcans have extrasensory perceptions and they're always adding them, but I don't know, that one just didn't really work for me.
Discovery season 1 is underrated in Matt's opinion.
Yeah. I mean, I really enjoyed it up until really the Mirror Universe arc, and then it sort of lost me. Yeah, but we can go into that more at a different time. I don't want to get on a Discovery rant. We'll be here all night.
Which one came next, Picard or Lower Decks?
I think Lower Decks came next.
Picard debuted before Lower Decks.
I think it did, yeah. So
Yeah.
there we have my two favorite characters on the show, Picard and number 1.
I really enjoyed the pilot.
I thought the pilot was phenomenal.
Yeah.
I loved it.
And the ending was shocking, to say the least.
Of the first episode you're talking about.
Oh,
you can be specific. There's not, I mean, all right, spoiler alert for the Picard premiere, but go ahead, Veronica. What was shocking about it to you?
The main character was killed.
Yeah. It was pretty surprising when Soji died.
Right. Yeah. I loved it. I loved, and we've mentioned this on the show before too. He's doing the press interview, and he never does interviews, and he's like, I don't want to do this because they're just going to go back to this thing that I did whenever that was. And they kept pressing him on that point of you wasted all this time and all these resources to save, to do this mission. And he said, well, there were lives that needed to be saved. And she said, Romulan lives. He said, no, lives. And I was like, that's my Picard.
Yeah, that felt
That
like
is
Picard.
my Picard. That is, and I thought it was such a great episode.
Yeah, I thought it was a good pilot. What came later probably didn't live up to the pilot, but I thought the pilot was good. I thought, other than Picard leaving
Shame on you,
Starfleet,
Matt.
which I hate, but I like the Picard character. In some ways, he seemed more real than in some ways, honestly, he's been portrayed later. I mean, I kind of bought him where he was and where he was in his life. And the mystery was very intriguing in that first episode. Guys, for those of you who are listening, I've said many times I am not a fan of the Kelvin verse or the Abrams verse, and so there's things they made that thing with the destruction of Romulus. This was probably as good a follow up to that destruction of Romulus as you were going to get with the whole thing of Picard, as you're saying.
Yeah.
This is our job. We save life. It doesn't matter if it's Romulus. And obviously, in our real world, we have this problem all the time. We got people, as we record right now, arguing, should we be giving 40 or 60 billion dollars to Ukraine, and it's not our war, and blah blah blah. And if kids die or starving in Africa, what do we care? It's another country. I think that's unfortunately going to be an eternal discussion with humanity, and I do like the way Picard was handling that. I didn't like Rafi in that original, in the pilot. I didn't like her introduction. She was, I've ran on that one. I just still don't get her. I don't understand why she fell that far. But overall, it was a good pilot. It was a competent pilot. And one thing I will say about the new Trek, like them or not, they were some of the best looking stuff I've ever seen on television. Just production value, everything. It's just amazing, amazing looking shows.
Oh yeah.
Elaine says she's getting a kick out of Facebook captioning calling Picard Bacardi.
Okay.
That's funny.
Not a bad idea when you're watching Picard.
That's true.
Pickard? Is it spelled Pickard?
No, I was going to say I don't think I've ever actually said it on the show. But when I'm watching it by myself or whatever, I always call the show Mr. Pickard.
Yes.
Going back to Time's Arrow, Mr. Pickard. Yeah,
Yes.
I just love that. So that's what I call him, and that's what I call the show. Star Trek, Mr. Pickard.
And
So,
doesn't Q call him Pickard one time in one of the episodes? I think Q calls him that.
No,
Sounds
I don't
right.
think so. Does he?
I
Yeah,
don't know.
yeah. He calls him Jean-Luc Pickard in one of the episodes.
I
Might
remember
even be
that.
Tapestry. I got to look that up.
Yeah, it could be. I rarely rewatch Tapestry. I find it boring. But that's just me.
I
think the first 3 episodes of Picard were great. Again, should have stayed on planet's surface. Well,
No, and I was thinking about this when Keith, you were talking about staying on Earth and Enterprise.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Uh-huh.
By episode 3, I was ready to get into freaking space.
Yeah.
You know, like I
Right.
would not have want to watch 20 episodes back in the day
No.
of them building the Warp 5 engine. Like I want to go to space and meet strange new worlds. You know, I don't. I
Yeah,
don't wanna hang out
exactly.
on Earth.
What would they have done for an entire season of having a debate with the Vulcans about we are ready, no, you're not?
I know.
Holy smokes, that would have got old super fast.
Yeah. Well, they were also going to do the other character, the other captain who almost got the Warp 5 ship.
Yeah.
It was Arch. They were going to do that whole thing with the battle between
Oh
them.
yeah, but
Kind of the right
yeah.
stuff.
Yeah,
Right,
exactly.
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 But I'm
Yeah,
sorry,
not
that-
even I have to say not a whole season.
right.
Yeah.
Not
Right.
back when it was like 22 episodes in a season.
Right.
That's a lot of Earth.
Yeah, so I still like the Picard pilot. It was a good
Yeah.
pilot. I liked, and I think we've been some people I've listened to. We've talked about how Patrick Stewart is frail in real life, or frailer because he's older in real life. People talk about that, but I thought his character really worked because you still have that steel in his spine. You still have that Picard in there. He's just older,
Oh, yeah.
and people get older. You know,
Oh yeah.
heroes die young or they get older, and I love
Right.
that about it.
And that first episode where he's kind of like sort of resigning himself to life on the vineyard and never
Yeah.
going out into space again was I
Right.
thought really compelling.
Mhm.
And when that situation comes along, when Soji like drops in his lap and he's like, all of a sudden adventure is coming to call on his doorstep, and you can see that fire in his eye,
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
you know, where he's like, okay, I was ready to spend my life, but that's not who I am. I am the starship guy.
Yeah.
I thought
Yeah.
that was a great angle for a character that we haven't seen in a couple of decades.
And
Yeah.
also something you don't usually see with heroes, which was an incredibly uncomfortable scene, but realistic, is when he kind of marched in the Starfleet and kind of expected the Admiral to just kind of, and the way she dressed him down was really uncomfortable. I mean, it was
Yeah, it
almost
was.
like,
Yeah, she said
No,
the
it
F
was
word,
rough.
and we're not used to that in Star Trek.
absolutely. Yeah. And because he was older and because he was no longer Jean-Luc of the Starship Enterprise, he was not defeated, but he was crestfallen for a
Yeah.
minute. You know, he was wounded by that.
Yeah.
And it was all like, whoa, I don't matter. And but I love what I love about that is he had to get over in some ways his own hubris, but to find himself again. It's like, I'm no longer Picard who can just march in here and demand, but I'm not washed up either. And I'm not gonna give up. So I thought it was a really complex performance in that first pilot. Really complex.
Now,
And I love
Anthony
that guy.
Williams. Oh, sorry. I was just going
Go
to
ahead.
say This is a family show, Anthony Williams, unlike Picard. All right,
Sheer
sorry,
fracking hubris.
right, exactly.
Yes.
I was gonna say I did love that guy that asked him for his name at
Yes.
Starfleet. I love that bit. But
Yeah.
Also, I love how it opens with blue skies set
Oh, yeah.
across the backdrop
Right.
of outer space.
Yeah.
I thought that was a great tie-in to Nemesis, and I wasn't a big fan of Nemesis, but a lot of elements of Picard made Nemesis better for me, just because they sort of elevate those elements in Picard.
All
Agreed.
right, let's jump ahead because we've
Okay.
only got a few minutes and we've got 3 more shows to talk about. So Lower Decks.
Man,
I love it.
Love it.
that was
Love it.
amazing.
Love it. Knocked it out of the park.
Mhm.
Yes.
I will say that I was trepidatious going into it because the clips that they used in the trailer made me think that I was going to find the show really annoying.
Yeah.
Yes.
But I ended up really enjoying
Me
it. And of
too.
course, as we all know, the pilot was good. The show became quite possibly my favorite Star Trek show ever.
Really?
Absolutely
Except for
amazing.
DS9, because it's such a smartly written show and such good production, and the actors are great, and the pilot is good. I enjoyed it a
Mhm.
lot. It took me some time to get used to their pace.
You
And they
forget
all,
that you're like, wait, was that only 20 minutes?
Mhm.
I know.
Yeah.
They pack
So
a
much
lot
happened.
in there.
yeah. And also, those who listen to the show know that almost every week I find a reason to complain about all the fan service and the fan callbacks and all the shows. But Alan, based piggybacking on what you're saying, I think Lower Decks has done more
Oh, yeah.
callbacks
Oh yeah,
that work
yeah,
and
Yes.
actually make sense than anything I've seen so far.
right.
Yeah.
Just
Mhm.
amazing. They can like in the Abrams-verse movie when they introduced the Tribbles, right? In Star Trek Beyond. No, Star Trek in the Darkness. I'm like, oh God,
Mhm.
please, seriously, Tribbles. But when they introduce anything on this show, it works.
Yes.
Because it's
I don't
either
know.
played seriously and it works, or it's played for
Right.
comedy and it works.
I don't know why you have such a problem with other shows having tribbles in it.
Yeah. But yeah, I'm right on with Alan. I literally didn't know what to expect on the show. It was a
Mhm.
cartoon. I have never watched. What is those guys done? Is it Rick and Morty?
Rick and Morty.
Right.
Never
Well-
watched a moment of that.
Yeah. Mike
So
McMahon was
I-
a writer on Rick and Morty, but he didn't
Right,
do
right.
Rick and Morty. But yeah,
I-
but I had the same. I mean, I was pretty snarky about
Yeah.
Lower Decks from the time it was announced. But I mean, I really enjoyed it when it started, and it's just gotten better and better for me as it's gone on.
Absolutely.
Mhm.
Great show.
All right. Matt was won over by Lower Decks.
Yep.
Same
me
here.
too.
Dan, least favorite of all Trek shows. Wow.
Okay.
Wow,
Right.
Dan.
0 out of 10. Wow. That's amazing. Anthony says Keith is a secret Klingon.
That's true. That's true. We don't like tribbles.
Oh, that's good. That is good.
Oh gosh.
Oh,
Love it.
man. All right, let's jump ahead super quick.
Yep.
Buddy,
Prodigy.
good stuff.
Yeah. it
Good.
was.
Yeah. Good, not
Yeah.
great. Like it, don't love it.
I thought it was a well done show and very
Yes.
beautiful in the premiere.
Yes.
It took a little while to win me over to the Star Trekkiness of it because
Right,
it was
because
deliberate.
it
It didn't
Agreed.
start off Star Trekky.
It started off
Exactly.
Star Warsy.
Right. Exactly.
Yeah, right.
Exactly. This was like a lost episode of
Like Clone Wars or something.
Rebels,
Yeah.
Yeah.
which I loved Rebels.
Yeah.
Loved that show. So I was, even though it was very Star Warsy, I was like, you know what? I like this. I'm connecting with it. I like the characters. It took them, to the end of the second episode, the second half of the pilot, to get onto the starship. And when they got
Yeah.
onto the starship, I was like, dude, and then there's Janeway, and you're like,
Yeah.
all right, man. But no, I think it's a really good pilot.
Mhm.
I do too.
Obviously, the show grew a great deal, especially in the
Mhm.
second half. Well, the second half of what we've seen so far.
Right.
So,
Yeah.
episode 6 through 10,
Mhm.
it became a truly great show.
Yeah, I agree. I mean, no offense at all by this, but you can tell the pilot was a show that was geared more toward a much younger audience, and there's nothing wrong with that at all.
Oh yeah, it's intentional, and it's
Yeah.
good because, as I've said a million times, even before we ever started doing this podcast, that's an audience that Star Trek never reached,
You're right,
and I think
Right.
it's long overdue.
Matt.
Keith,
I just saw that come
that's
up.
good.
That's great.
Prodigy is
Oh.
brilliant in my opinion. Love it. Excellent.
Agreed.
I love it too.
It's
And,
a good show.
the first few episodes, I was like, this is good. This is
Mhm.
doing the thing that it said it was going to do with like
Yep.
having these young characters and sort of introducing them to the Star Trek concepts and everything. But I tell you, the fifth episode, the cliffhanger that it ended on, I was like, dude. And then episode 6 through 10, it was just like a rocket taking off.
Oh, yeah.
It was
Yeah.
so good.
Oh yeah,
Mhm.
I'm looking forward to it coming
Oh,
back.
I can't wait.
Absolutely,
Can't wait for it to
it's a
come back.
good show.
But
And we
you
need
know-
to shout out how great the score is as well.
Yes.
Yeah, baby.
Yeah.
Yep.
Go Nami.
Yep.
So it's interesting that we're at a time where we have so many Star Trek shows in production,
hmm
and each one, when it goes on its hiatus, whether it be at the end of the season or with Prodigy midway through season, you're like, I can't wait to see the next show that's coming up. But then as soon as that show starts, you're like, I can't wait to get back to Prodigy. I can't wait to get to season 3 of Lower Decks.
Yeah.
You know, I mean, I love every one of these shows and I enjoy them so much that
Mhm.
I can't wait to spend more time with them. And I think
You're right.
that's really exciting.
Yeah, and they're also different from each other.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Exactly. That's what keeps
Yeah.
it fresh.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Mhm.
this is true.
I'm okay with Prodigy, Matt says. Much prefer Lower Decks amongst the is it really canon though? Oh, is it really canon though?
I count them all as canon. Even the
Oh,
purple,
yeah.
Yeah.
or even the pink tribbles on animated series.
Yes.
Right. Right.
Back to the colorblind producers.
Exactly. And the gray Andorian.
Right.
Yeah,
So
Yeah,
that
this is
really
true.
leaves us with
Strange New Worlds,
baby.
which I thought was a wonderful premiere.
Yes.
love it.
yeah, I
Yeah.
agree with it too. I agree.
Yeah, and I know we just talked about this like 2 weeks ago,
Right.
but I mean, I think they've done a great job of setting up the show and give you an expectation of what it's going to be. They didn't try to introduce an ongoing antagonist for the series or anything
Right.
like that, you know. But it's just back to new planets, new adventures, which I like.
I
With a
wonder
good
if
crew. Yep.
Yeah.
I wonder if it would have been a different experience if you hadn't been introduced to some of these characters previously. Like if you hadn't
Like
gotten
if they weren't on Discovery.
because they were on Discovery, right?
Yeah.
I mean, obviously you would have known Spock and Uhura, but you wouldn't have known this Pike and this number one and
Right.
this Spock.
Yeah, but
And-
I think
and
this
how-
Pike is actually more like the original Pike than Discovery Pike was because of what he was going through. So I think
Right.
that I still would have recognized his character. And number one didn't have much to do in it anyway, so I don't think I would have noticed much of a difference with her.
Right. Right. We haven't got very much of her at all yet.
Mm-mm.
I know
think that's
we
tomorrow.
will.
Yeah.
Yeah. So yeah, I mean, as I said when we reviewed it, I immediately loved every character on it.
Mhm.
I felt a connection to them. I felt like I knew who they were. The storyline wasn't the focus of the episode. It was setting up this crew and introducing us to it, but the storyline was still really thoughtful and really interesting. So I thought it was a huge success.
Yeah.
Let me get a couple of comments here, and then
Go for
we're
it.
going to get to the poll,
Okay.
not the bat poll. Love this. Love the pilot. Love the second episode. Yep, me too. I don't think Prodigy has much more substance than Lower Decks, and I'm not a fan of how passive aggressive the Lower Decks characters relate to each other. That makes sense.
Yeah.
I love the first 5 episodes of Strange New Worlds. Yeah, bragger.
I know.
Yeah, brr.
Boo.
Especially episodes 4 and 5. Well, that means that we've got some great stuff to
Yep.
look forward to.
I'm teasing, Dan.
Oh, wait, of course. Parker says the humor aspects are a little off for if they are emulating TOS. They did have humor, but we took the characters really seriously. And Anthony says Strange New Worlds pilot is perfection. All right, so let me get to the I wish I had my drums here. I could go the unveiling of the so going into this poll that we put up on Monday. I was going to do a top 10 reveal. We had 12 things on the list and only 10 of them got votes. So it was kind of easy to separate out the top 10. But since the bottom ones, now everything has at least one vote. So I'm just going to break it all down. So the ones that came in with only one vote, Prodigy, so sad, Encounter at Farpoint, and Mantrap. Mantrap and Encounter were the two that up until this afternoon had no votes.
Mm.
So from there, we get Remembrance, Picard's premiere,
Mhm.
Broken Bow from Enterprise,
Okay.
Beyond the Farthest Star from the animated series,
Okay.
Wow.
Second Contact from Lower Decks,
Okay.
Discovery, The Vulcan Hello,
Okay.
and then the top, what is this, 5 or 6? The top 5 is the franchise pilot, The Cage,
Okay.
Voyager Caretaker. I am shocked that made it up
Me
as high as
too.
it did and higher than The Cage. Where No Man Has Gone Before is number 3.
Interesting.
That's
I
interesting.
can see that.
Yeah.
Yeah, I can see that though.
And
Absolutely
then-
I love
can
that
see
one.
that.
Yeah, I do too. And so the top 2 ones of all the Star Trek franchise, the 2 best series premieres, this is the same results that Dan got when he did this poll. Strange New Worlds at number 2, and by a pretty good margin, Emissary from DS9 is number
Wow.
1. Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah, I agree with that.
That's amazing.
I pretty much go in line with this whole
Yeah.
poll here. Yeah.
I like all these episodes though.
Yeah.
And I think it's
Me
wild
too.
that we have so many Star Trek premieres. Like
I
we were
know.
talking about doing this topic, and I was like, wait, there's like 11 of those.
Right. And
Which
then
is
you
great.
have
Bring
to
'em
count
on.
all the extra ones too.
Yeah.
TOS is,
That's true.
15 different pilots.
Right.
So when one of our current series ends, which will be Picard when it does its 3rd season, we'll have to rank all of the series finales.
Yeah, that'd be fun.
Oh, that's going to be
Yeah.
a good
Yeah.
one.
All good
That's
things
going to be a
wins.
good one. All right. So I guess that's gonna
All
wrap-
good things wins. I love it.
Yep.
No, it's Turnabout Intruder.
No.
Oh, yeah. Okay. So we're at a little after an hour. Wait, one last comment. Oh, nothing. It was just him saying, oh, which I guess is to the idea of doing the finales. So, thank you all for joining us and watching us ramble on for an hour about our favorite topic. Hope you enjoyed it. Thank you for all the comments and the questions. Keith, where can people find you if they want to see more of you on the intranet?
You can find me on Instagram and Twitter, and yeah, let's go ahead and say Facebook, primarily the ESO Network Facebook groups.
It's kind of iffy right now, but
Yeah.
but eventually you'll get back there.
Right.
Someday.
And recently on a guest spot I did, which the guys will talk about.
Yep.
Chuck and Veronica. Give us the
Feltnerdy.com.
Yep. And,
Feltnerdy.com.
and monkeying around.
Yep.
Yeah.
And our
Martin.
next episode features Keith talking about the original Monkeys pilot episode. And then our
Speaking
friend
of
Elaine
series
Sweatman-
pilots,
Yep. Speaking
Yes.
of pilots, perfectly timed. And and then our friend Elaine Sweatman, who was in the chat earlier, is on that podcast with us. And that should be out not this Tuesday, but the next Tuesday.
very cool.
And how about you, Keith?
I mean, Alan.
Alan?
Well, I was going to say, what does Felt Nerdy have coming up on the radar?
Dragon
And,
Con
and,
is the
and
big
tell
thing.
people what Felt Nerdy is.
Felt Nerdy is our puppet show. We're performers in the Southeast. We do puppet shows for conventions, adult things, burlesques, all kind of stuff. There's a whole range. We do family friendly stuff and we do not family friendly stuff. And
Most
yeah,
of them nerdy.
the next big thing we've got coming up is Dragon Con. We've got, I think, 2 shows and a slam piece and a workshop confirmed so far for Dragon Con. So we're gonna be busy.
Nice.
OMG puppets.
That's right. That's us.
Check out our Star Trek puppets. We
Yeah.
have an awesome Spock.
Yeah, go to our Felt Nerdy page. Thank you, Dan.
Thank you, Dan. We
long
appreciate
and
that very
prosper.
much. And Matt,
Yes.
Mrs. Keith on Facebook.
Me too.
Yeah, I'm trying, Matt. I'm trying, brother. I'm trying to get there. Maybe I'll show up as Keith.
There you go.
We got to get like a Snapchat filter that puts a Klingon look on your face.
Yeah.
So I have another podcast on the ESO network, and that is Modern Musicology. And we have a new episode that's just out, our 20th episode.
Ooh.
And it is sort of a rundown of this year's Rock and Roll Hall of Fame inductees.
Mhm.
After we talk about 5 minutes about this year's Eurovision. But the bulk of the episode is the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame, and it's a pretty good one. And we really enjoyed recording it. And I have got my publishing company, cosmicpress.com. Go find it on cosmicpress.com, KOZMICpress.com, and on Facebook and Twitter.
All right.
All right.
Awesome. Thanks, everybody. We really appreciate you joining.
Yeah.
Anthony. He's the British guy.
Oh.
Oh, Anthony, I love you.
I love it.
All right. Take us out, Chuck.
Thanks so much.
Veronica, do you have a closing for us?
Nook duck. Oh, puck buck. Eh.
Hey.
Oh, very
Woo.
well said.
Great.
Whatever you said was very well said.
you.
Impressive. What does it mean?
Where's the bathroom?
Only the Klingons could get asked, "Where's the bathroom?" like that.
Only the Klingons could ask where the bathroom is in Klingon. That's true.
Well, with all that aggression and all those words, yeah.
I think what she's saying is this show's gone on so long that she's like, time to get. All right. So everybody watching, thank you so much for joining us. Take care. Have a great week. Do good things in the world and spread love. And we will see you very, very soon. Check out all of our new episodes on Podbean or wherever you find your great podcasts. And new episodes come out every Monday morning. See you around the horn.
See ya.
The horn?